Ahoy! Captain Benzie here, coming at you with another intel report. The Command & Conquer Rivals equivalent of that little slip of paper in a box of chocolates that tells you what they all are, but with more explosions. Today we're looking at Nod laser drones. Laser drones are the result of Kane's directive to utilize recruits from yellow zones whose physical limitations, brought on by years of Tiberium exposure, made them unsuitable for standard service. It was found that by forcibly inserting the cerebrum of these recruits into a laser drone, they could provide a few days of valuable service to the Brotherhood despite their disabilities. So basically they're brains in jars that fly and fire laser beams. Cool. Fast moving and cheap, laser drones may appear similar to GDI drone swarms at first glance, but their uses are very different. Laser drones are essentially laser squads that swap their anti-air capabilities for the ability to fly. They're a very cost-effective way of taking out ground vehicles like tanks, MLRS, and Giga cannons that cannot return fire. This job would normally fall to Banshees, but the laser drones are significantly cheaper, making them a quick and easy splash in a fast-paced and cheap deck. Following the Nod playbook closely, laser drones are fast but fragile. They're less flying jars and more like wet paper bags when facing dedicated AA units like pit bulls. In a 2v1, however, the drones will win out against them, so bear this in mind once your opponent starts bringing out anti-aircraft units. Now, one of the best things about laser drones is their low cost. This means you can easily splash them into most decks to give you a quick and cost-effective way to deal with ground vehicles. The deck shown here is essentially just the basic Nod aggro deck, but swapping out Banshees for laser drones, and we'll cover why in just a bit. Your overarching strategy is to win the first two missiles by contesting and controlling the pads, and pressuring their harvester with your drone squads, bikes, and tanks. Laser troops are your de facto scouting unit. Send them on their merry way before you build your harvester and use them to block any rushes that happen to be coming your way. Otherwise, if you encounter war dogs, build more lasers. Or if you find yourself facing riflemen, pull back and prepare to send in flame troopers. Should your opponent pull out aircraft or light vehicles, either gang up on them with laser squads if you can, or move into the war factory for attack bikes and scorpion tanks as necessary. This deck is cheap enough that you should be able to pick whatever you need as you need it, with only the one harvester out to keep your population cap right down. If your opponent absolutely insists on running heavy infantry your way, then Venoms will chase those down. Use your laser troops to defend them from attack bikes and pit bulls. Your laser drones can then support your laser squads in anti-vehicle duty, or are cheap enough to throw at the enemy harvester just for pure distraction tactics, or for punishing double harvester tech builds. They're just scary enough that your opponent will be forced to send more expensive anti-air units out to deal with them. Speaking of harvesters, the great thing about this deck is that you can switch up your playstyle depending on the map. Now, on most maps you would play this deck as you would any standard aggro match, but if the conditions are right, you could even consider a laser drone rush. If you opt for this, build 2 laser squads and keep them out of sight. Once the second laser drones are built, rush to their harvester and pull out a Venom. The Venom will deal nicely with any infantry-like missile squads that your opponent may deploy as scouts, and the 2 laser drone units can pull down a harvester surprisingly quickly. Should you find yourself on the receiving end of this, you've got a few options. If you spot it early enough, hold off on your harvester, deal with the drones, and counter-push. It can be difficult to recover from a failed laser drone rush, so it is very risky. If you don't spot it in time, follow the advice I gave in my video about countering rushes. Send in anti-air units and move your harvester to make it hard for the drones to gang up on it. If you're using a War Dogs opener, block one of the tiles that the drones would use with your dogs, then run a pit bull back and forth through your harvester to deal with the laser drones. Keep the pit bull moving so that the drones are unable to gang up on that. Now, I haven't mentioned a commander here, and that's ultimately because they'll all work. As the deck is so cheap, Seth's drill pod will give you that pad stealing capability and allows you to deal with infantry easier. Kane's obelisk provides good ground support for the second missile, and you should have plenty of Tiberium to build it. Oksana is a decent choice for this, as her fanaticism ability can give you just the push you need when you need it. Jade is probably less likely to see play in this deck, but the Catalyst missile can be a great way to deal with tougher threats in a pinch, and can be devastating on the right maps, especially since the drones can give you good vision wherever you need it most. I hope that's helpful. Be sure to check out my other intel reports if you're struggling against certain units, or looking for tips as to how to best apply a new unit in your deck. Also check out my Acting on Instinct series with analysis of game mechanics and solid advice on how to get ahead in Rivals. Hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe to be up to date and ahead of the game. Happy sailing, and see you on the battlefield!